The ship descended through purple clouds, and Daniel Carter watched the alien world grow larger through the viewport. The planet was beautiful in a strange way. Twin suns cast golden light across vast cities made of crystal and stone. Rivers of silver water cut through endless gardens. It looked like paradise. Daniel stood up and checked his armor one more time. The heavy plates covered every part of his body. The helmet sealed with a soft hiss. Through the visor, he could see readouts and data streams, but he ignored them. He had worn this armor for 15 years. It felt like a second skin now. "Ambassador Carter," the ship's computer said, "we are beginning final approach to the Royal Palace. The Volanthi delegation is waiting." "Understood," Daniel replied. His voice sounded flat and mechanical through the helmet speakers. He preferred it that way. Emotions had no place in diplomacy. The Volanthi Empire controlled 47 star systems. They had conquered species across the galaxy for thousands of years. Their technology was advanced. Their military was vast. And until 6 months ago, they had never heard of humanity. First contact had been an accident. A human exploration ship had stumbled into Volanthi space and barely escaped. Now Earth's united coalition wanted peace. They sent Daniel because he was patient, because he was calm, and because he never lost his temper, no matter what anyone said to him. The ship landed in a courtyard of white marble. Daniel walked down the ramp and felt the planet's gravity pull at him. It was lighter than Earth. Everything here was lighter, softer, gentler. He understood immediately why the Volanthi looked at humans with confusion. Understood immediately why the Volanthi looked at humans with confusion. Group of aliens waited for him at the bottom of the ramp. They were tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Their movements were graceful, almost like dancers. They wore robes of silk that flowed like water. Not a single weapon was visible anywhere. The leader of the group stepped forward. He had silver markings on his face that indicated high rank. "I am Ambassador Tyven," he said. His voice was smooth and musical. "I speak for Queen Solara. You are the human called Daniel Carter." "I am," Daniel said. Tyven studied him for a long moment. His dark eyes moved across the armor, taking in every detail. "You wear battle clothing to a peaceful meeting. Is this a threat?" "No," Daniel said. "It is comfort." Tyven's expression shifted slightly. It might have been confusion or amusement. With alien faces, it was hard to tell. "Come, the Queen will see you now. She is curious about your kind." They walked through the palace together. Daniel noticed that every Volanthi they passed stopped to stare at him. Some whispered to each other. Others simply watched with those large, unblinking eyes. He heard fragments of their conversations through his helmet's translation system. "So small," one said. "Why does it hide inside metal?" Another asked. "I heard they only live for 80 years, a third whispered. "Like insects." Daniel said nothing. He had heard worse. The throne room was enormous. Pillars of crystal rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Hundreds of Volanthi nobles filled the space, all dressed in fine robes. All watching the armored human walk toward the raised platform at the far end. And there sat Queen Solara. She was the most beautiful creature Daniel had ever seen. Her skin was pale silver, and her eyes were like pools of liquid night. A crown of living flowers rested on her head, and her gown seemed to be made of captured moonlight. She looked eternal, ageless, perfect. She also looked bored. "So," she said, and her voice filled the room like music, "this is a human." Daniel stopped at the proper distance and bowed. "Your Majesty, I am Daniel Carter, envoy of Earth's United Coalition. I bring greetings from my people and a request for peaceful relations between our species." The Queen leaned forward slightly. "Peaceful relations? How quaint." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell me, little human, why should the Volanti Empire care about your people? We have ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. Your species has barely learned to travel between stars. That is true, Daniel admitted. We are young. We are new to the galaxy. But we learn quickly. Laughter rippled through the court. The Queen's smile grew wider. Learn quickly. Yes, I have read the reports about your kind. You have short lives and fragile bodies. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot breathe underwater. You require specific temperatures and specific air mixtures just to stay alive. She tilted her head. You are perhaps the most limited species we have ever encountered. Daniel remained silent. And yet, the Queen continued, you come here in armor. You hide your face behind a mask. You seal yourself away from the world as if you are afraid of it. She gestured at the nobles around her. Look at my people. We wear no armor. We carry no weapons. We have no fear. I can see that, Daniel said. Then why do you hide? The Queen's voice sharpened. Is it shame? Are humans so ugly that they cannot show themselves? Or is it fear? Are you so weak that you need metal shells just to feel safe? The court laughed again. Some of the nobles made gestures that Daniel recognized as mockery. He waited until the laughter died. Then he spoke. Your Majesty, I mean no disrespect. I wear this armor because it is familiar to me. I have worn it for many years. It has kept me alive through difficult times. Difficult times, the Queen repeated. What difficult times could a species as young and weak as yours possibly face? Daniel considered his answer carefully. We have faced many challenges. Our world is not gentle. Our history is not peaceful. We have survived things that would break other species. Bold words from someone hiding inside a metal shell. The Queen waved her hand dismissively. I have heard enough. Your request for peaceful relations is denied. The Volanti Empire has no need for alliances with inferior creatures. Return to your people and tell them to stay out of our space. If they obey, we will ignore them. If they do not, we will remove them. Daniel bowed again. I understand. But may I ask one thing before I leave? The Queen raised an eyebrow. Speak. May I remain here for a few days? I have traveled far, and my ship requires minor repairs. I promise to stay out of your way. Saylara studied him for a long moment. Then she shrugged. Very well. You may stay in the guest quarters. But do not mistake this for kindness. I simply find you amusing. She smiled coldly. A small, fragile creature in heavy armor, asking for peace. It is almost sad. Thank you, Your Majesty, Daniel said. Perhaps in time, you will see that there is more to humanity than what appears on the surface. The Queen laughed. I doubt that very much. Daniel bowed one final time and allowed the guards to escort him away. As he walked through the halls, he heard the whispers follow him. Weak, fragile, pathetic. He smiled inside his helmet. They had no idea. 3 days passed. Daniel stayed in the guest quarters as promised. He did not cause trouble. He did not complain. He simply waited, ate the food they brought him, and watched the twin suns rise and set through his window. The Volanti watched him too. Servants came and went, always finding excuses to linger. Guards stood outside his door at all hours, their eyes never leaving him. And Ambassador Tyven visited the palace archives every night, searching for information about the strange visitors from Earth. What he found confused him. The Galactic database had limited records on humanity. They were a young species, barely 2 centuries into space travel. Their homeworld was listed as a Class 12 planet, but that designation made no sense. Class 12 worlds were death traps. No intelligent species had ever evolved on anything above Class 8. The database must have contained an error. Tyven dug deeper. He found scattered reports from trade ships that had encountered humans. The reports were strange. One captain described humans as friendly and helpful. Another called them terrifying. A third refused to discuss them at all. There were also fragments of human history, translated poorly into the galactic common language. Wars, diseases, natural disasters, extinction events. The numbers were staggering. Billions dead from something called the Black Plague. Millions more from wars fought over land, resources, and ideas. The humans had nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times. And yet they survived. Every single time, Tyven closed the archive files and sat in the dark. Something was wrong. The pieces did not fit together. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, inferior. But weak species did not survive Class 12 worlds. Fragile creatures did not endure constant catastrophe. Inferior beings did not keep fighting until they won. He decided to speak with the human directly. The next morning, Tyven found Daniel sitting in the guest quarters garden. The human was still wearing his armor, still hiding behind his helmet. He sat on a stone bench, completely still, watching a small fountain bubble and flow. "May I join you?" Tyven asked. Daniel turned his helmeted head. "Of course, Ambassador." Tyven sat on a nearby bench, keeping distance between them. "I have been researching your species. I have many questions. I will answer what I can." Tyven paused, choosing his words carefully. "Your homeworld, Earth. The records say it is a Class 12 planet. Is this true?" "I do not know your classification system," Daniel said. "But yes, Earth is considered dangerous by most galactic standards." "How dangerous?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke in that flat, mechanical voice. "The surface temperature ranges from -90 to +50 degrees. We have storms that can destroy entire cities. Our oceans contain creatures that can swallow ships whole. The ground shakes without warning and splits open. Mountains explode with liquid fire. And the air itself carries invisible killers that can wipe out millions in weeks." Tyven felt a chill run through him. "And you evolved there? Naturally?" "Yes. How is that possible?" Daniel tilted his head slightly. "We did not have a choice. It was adapt or die. So we adapted." Tyven leaned back, processing this information. "The reports say your people have fought many wars. Against each other." "That is true. Why? Resources? Territory?" "Sometimes," Daniel said. "Sometimes for ideas. Sometimes for pride. Sometimes for reasons no one remembers anymore." He paused. "Humans are complicated. But you keep fighting, even against yourselves. Even when it destroys you." "Yes. Why?" Daniel turned to face him fully. Through the dark visor, Tyven could see nothing. No face, no expression, no hint of what lay beneath. Because stopping means dying, and humans do not like to die. Before Tyven could respond, a servant appeared at the garden entrance. "Ambassador Tyven, the Queen requests your presence." "And the human as well." They walked together through the palace corridors. Tyven noticed that Daniel moved differently than the Volante. His steps were heavy, deliberate, planted. Each footfall seemed to claim the ground beneath it. The Volante flowed like water. The human moved like stone. The Queen waited in her war chamber, surrounded by military commanders. Maps and tactical displays covered the walls. This was not a social meeting. "Ambassador Carter," Salara said. Her voice was colder than before. "We have received intelligence reports about your species." "Disturbing reports." Daniel stopped and bowed. "I am listening, Your Majesty." The Queen gestured, and a holographic display activated. It showed images of battle. Ships burning in space. Cities in flames. Bodies scattered across alien landscapes. 18 months ago, Salara said, Your species fought a war against the Krorath Collective. They attacked your outer colonies without warning. 60 million humans died in the first week. Daniel said nothing. According to our intelligence, the Krorath had superior numbers, superior technology, and superior training. They expected the war to last 1 month. The Queen's eyes narrowed. It lasted 2 years. And the Krorath no longer exist as a species. The commanders shifted uncomfortably. One of them spoke up. We analyzed the battle records. The human tactics were crude, wasteful. They threw soldiers into situations that guaranteed death. They sacrificed entire fleets just to slow enemy advances. It was madness. And yet they won, Tyven said quietly. The room fell silent. Queen Salara stood and walked toward Daniel. She stopped just a few feet away, close enough to see her own reflection in his dark visor. Tell me, human, how did your weak, fragile species defeat an enemy that outmatched you in every way? Daniel's response came slowly, measured. We did not outfight them. We outlasted them. Every time they killed one of us, 10 more took their place. Every ship they destroyed, we built 3 more. Every world they burned, we remembered, and we never stopped coming. That is impossible, a commander said. No species can sustain those losses and continue fighting. Humans can, Daniel said simply. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. You speak of your people as if you know war personally. I do. Were you there? In this war against the Krorath? Yes. And what did you do? Daniel paused. What was necessary? Salara circled him slowly, like a predator examining prey. You hide behind your armor. You hide behind your words. You speak in riddles and half-truths. She stopped in front of him again. I want proof, human, real proof, not stories, not reports. Show me what your species truly is. That is not wise, Your Majesty. I do not care about wisdom. I care about truth. Her voice hardened. You asked to stay here. I granted that request. Now I am asking something in return. Show me proof of what you claim, or leave my world and never return. Daniel stood perfectly still for several seconds. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. But I must warn you, Your Majesty. Some truths are difficult to witness. Once seen, they cannot be unseen. The Queen smiled, but there was no humor in it. I have ruled an empire for 300 years. I have seen things that would break lesser minds. I am not afraid of truth. Then tomorrow evening, Daniel said, in a private audience, I will show you what humanity truly is. I will be waiting. Daniel bowed and left the chamber. Behind him, the Volanthi commanders exchanged worried glances. Something about the human's voice had changed at the end. Just slightly. Just enough. For the first time, it had sounded almost like pity. The next evening came quickly. The twin suns sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The palace grew quiet as servants retired to their quarters and nobles returned to their estates. Only the guards remained, standing watch in the endless marble corridors. Daniel waited in his room until the summons came. A single servant, nervous and wide-eyed, appeared at his door. The Queen is ready for you. Please follow me. They walked through empty hallways, past darkened chambers and silent gardens. The path led deep into the palace, to a section Daniel had not seen before. The decorations here were older, more personal. Portraits of past rulers lined the walls. Ancient weapons hung in display cases. This was the Queen's private domain. The servant stopped at a tall door carved with images of stars and moons. Through here. The Queen waits inside. Then he turned and hurried away, moving faster than was proper for palace staff. Daniel watched him go. Then he pushed open the door and stepped through. The private throne chamber was smaller than the public one, but far more beautiful. The walls were made of dark stone veined with gold, The ceiling was a perfect dome painted to look like the night sky. A single throne sat on a raised platform, and Queen Selara reclined upon it, watching him enter with those bottomless dark eyes. She was not alone. Ambassador Tyvan stood to her left, his silver-marked face tight with concern. 2 royal guards flanked the throne, their hands resting on ceremonial blades. They were not as relaxed as they had been before. "You came," the Queen said. "I wondered if you might change your mind." "I gave my word," Daniel replied. "So you did." Selara gestured to the space before her throne. "Come closer, human. Let us conduct this meeting properly." Daniel walked forward and stopped at the base of the platform. He looked up at the Queen, his visor reflecting her silver form. Neither spoke for a moment. Tyvan broke the silence. "Your Majesty, I must again advise caution. We know nothing about what this creature intends. Allowing it to perform any demonstration without proper screening is a security risk." "Noted," the Queen said, not taking her eyes off Daniel. "And ignored. I want to see what the human has to show me." She leaned forward. "You promised proof, Ambassador Carter. Proof that humanity is more than it appears. I am waiting." Daniel nodded slowly. "Before I begin, I need to explain something. My people wear armor for many reasons. Protection, comfort, practicality. But there is another reason, one we do not often discuss. And what is that? Mercy?" The word hung in the air. Tyvan frowned. The guards shifted their weight. The Queen's expression did not change. "Explain," Selara commanded. "When other species see humans in armor, they see metal shells. They see technology. They see something they can understand and measure and compare to their own capabilities." Daniel paused. "They do not see what lies beneath. And that is intentional, because what lies beneath tends to frighten people." The Queen laughed, but it was a short, sharp sound without real humor. "You think you can frighten me? I have ruled an empire that spans 47 star systems. I have commanded fleets that burned worlds. I have ordered the deaths of millions without losing a night's sleep. Nothing you show me will make me afraid." "I believe you believe that," Daniel said quietly. Selara's eyes narrowed. "Remove your armor, human. Now, I have grown tired of your riddles and warnings. Show me what you are hiding, or admit that you have nothing to show." "Very well." Daniel reached up to his helmet. "But remember that you asked for this." He pressed the release catches and lifted the helmet from his head. The Queen's expression flickered. She had expected something hideous, perhaps, or something weak and pathetic. Instead, she saw a human face for the first time. It was neither. Daniel Carter looked ordinary. Brown hair cut short, brown eyes that revealed nothing, a square jaw and weathered skin. He could have been any age between 30 and 50. His features were not remarkable in any way, except for the scars. A thin white line ran from his left eyebrow down to his cheek, barely missing his eye. A patch of rough, discolored skin covered the right side of his jaw, the mark of an old burn. His nose had been broken at least twice, healed slightly crooked. His ears showed small notches where pieces had been torn away. Tyvan sucked in a breath. The guards took half a step forward, then stopped, uncertain. The Queen stared. "What happened to your face?" "Life," Daniel said simply. He set the helmet aside and reached for his gauntlets. "This is only the beginning, Your Majesty. If you wish, I can stop here." "No." Selara's voice was firm, but her eyes had widened slightly. "Continue." Daniel removed his gauntlets and held up his hands. The Queen leaned forward to see them clearly. They were the hands of someone who had worked and fought and suffered for many years. Calluses covered the palms like armor. Scars crossed the backs of both hands in patterns that told stories. 3 fingers had been broken and healed slightly wrong. The knuckles were thick and rough from impacts. 1 fingernail was missing entirely. "These are the hands of a diplomat?" the Queen asked softly. "These are the hands of a human," Daniel replied. "Before I was a diplomat, I was a soldier. Before I was a soldier, I was a farmer. Before I was a farmer, I was a child who fell from trees and cut himself on rocks and burned himself learning to cook." He turned his hands over slowly. "Every human has hands like these. Some have worse." He began removing the armor from his arms. The vambraces came first, then the upper arm plates, then the shoulder guards. Each piece revealed more skin, and each inch of skin told more of the story. The Queen had stopped breathing. Daniel's arms were covered in scars. Cuts, burns, punctures, tears. The marks overlapped and intersected like a map of violence. Some were old and faded. Others were newer, still slightly pink. A few looked like they should have been fatal. "This," Daniel said, pointing to a long scar on his forearm, "was from a blade during the Croath War. This," he indicated a cluster of small dots on his shoulder, "was from shrapnel when a building exploded beside me. This," he touched a wide burn that wrapped around his bicep, "was from pulling a wounded soldier out of a burning vehicle." Tyven had gone pale. "How are you still alive?" "Because I did not die." Daniel looked at the Queen. "Shall I continue?" Selara found her voice. It was quieter now, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Yes, show me everything." Daniel nodded and reached for the clasps on his chest plate. This was the largest piece, the one that covered his torso from neck to waist. He worked the releases slowly, deliberately. "Your Majesty," he said as he worked, "my people have a saying. It is old, from a time before we traveled to the stars. Perhaps you have heard similar words in your own culture." "What saying?" The chest plate came loose. Daniel held it for a moment, looking directly into the Queen's eyes. "What does not kill us," he said, "makes us stronger." Then he let the armor fall. The chest plate hit the floor with a heavy clang that echoed through the chamber. The sound faded into absolute silence. Queen Selara stopped breathing. Daniel stood before her, stripped to the waist, and the Queen finally understood why humans wore armor. It was not for protection. It was not for comfort. It was mercy. Mercy for everyone who might otherwise have to look upon what humanity truly was. His body was a horror. Story written in flesh. Scars covered every inch of visible skin. Not random marks scattered here and there, but layer upon layer of damage, healed and reopened and healed again until the very nature of his skin had changed. His torso was a patchwork of different textures and colors, smooth areas next to rough ones, pale sections beside dark ones, but it was more than just scars. On his left shoulder, a massive burn scar spread down across his chest like spilled liquid. The skin there was tight and shiny, rippled like melted wax. It continued down his ribs and wrapped around to his back. On his right side, 3 long parallel gouges ran from his collarbone to his hip. The marks were deep and rough, clearly made by something with claws. Something large in the center of his chest. A circular scar the size of a fist marked where something had penetrated completely through his body. The exit wound on his back, barely visible as he shifted his weight, was even larger and everywhere, there were smaller marks. Bullet wounds, blade cuts, punctures, tears, the evidence of a lifetime spent in violence, written permanently on his body. One of the guards made a sound, something between a gasp and a moan. He took 3 steps backward before stopping himself. The other guard had turned pale gray, his hand pressed against his mouth. Tyven whispered something in his native language. It sounded like a prayer. Queen Selara sat frozen on her throne, her dark eyes wide, her perfect silver hands gripping the armrests so tightly that the crystal cracked beneath her fingers. Daniel waited. He gave them time to look, to process, to understand. Then he spoke, and his voice was calm, almost gentle. "I am not special among humans. I'm average, perhaps even fortunate." He gestured at his ruined body. "Every human soldier has scars like these. Many civilians do as well. We do not consider them remarkable. They are simply part of being human." The Queen's mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. She swallowed hard and tried again. "The burn. What caused it?" "A plasma explosion during the siege of New Melbourne. I was carrying a wounded child to safety when the building beside us was hit. The flames caught me from shoulder to hip." Daniel touched the scar almost absently. "I did not drop the child. And the claw marks?" "A creature called a Krorath Berserker. They were the shock troops of the enemy we fought. 8 feet tall, 4 arms, claws like knives. This one caught me during a boarding action. I killed it with a broken rifle while it was tearing open my side." Selara's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "The hole in your chest." Daniel looked down at the scar. "Railgun round. It passed through my body and destroyed half my heart. The medics rebuilt it with synthetic tissue. I was back in combat in 6 weeks." "That is not possible," Tyven said. His voice shook. "No living creature could survive such injuries. Not one of them. Certainly not all of them together. And yet I am standing here." Daniel spread his arms, displaying the full extent of the damage. "This is what humans are, Ambassador. This is what we have always been. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we refused to die. We fought our planet. We fought each other. We fought diseases that should have wiped us out and disasters that should have ended our civilization. We lost billions of our kind along the way. Billions." He lowered his arms. "And we are still here." The Queen finally released her grip on the throne. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady, and descended the steps toward Daniel. Her guards moved to stop her, but she waved them back. She stopped an arm's length from the human and stared at his body with something that might have been horror or fascination or both. "May I?" she asked, her voice small. Daniel nodded. Selara reached out with one delicate silver hand and touched the burned scar on his shoulder. Her fingers were cool against his skin. She traced the edge of the damaged tissue, following its path down his chest, feeling where the flesh had melted and reformed into something new. "It does not hurt?" she asked. "Not anymore. Some of the nerves were destroyed. Others have healed." She moved her hand to the claw marks, running her fingers along the deep grooves. "You should have bled to death from this wound alone." "Probably. But I did not. How?" She looked up at his face, and for the first time, there was no arrogance in her eyes. No contempt, only a desperate need to understand. "How does your species survive these things?" Daniel considered the question carefully before answering. "We do not know exactly. Our scientists have theories. Our bodies heal faster than they should. Our minds refuse to accept death even when our bodies are failing. Our willpower seems to affect our physical recovery in ways that make no scientific sense." He paused. "Or perhaps we are simply too stubborn to die." A sound escaped the Queen that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Too stubborn to die. That is your explanation?" "It is the only one that has ever fit." Selara stepped back and looked at him again, taking in the full picture. The scars. The muscles beneath them, still strong despite everything. The way he stood straight and steady as if his body was not a collection of barely healed wounds. "Why?" she asked finally. "You could have shown me documents, statistics, medical records. Why show me this instead?" "Because you would not have believed anything else." Daniel met her eyes steadily. "Your Majesty, I did not come here to threaten you. I came here to ask for peace. But you needed to understand what you were dealing with first. Not because we want war, but because we do not. I do not understand. Humans have fought enough wars. We have suffered enough. We have caused enough suffering. We came to the stars hoping to find something better than what we left behind." His voice softened. "We do not want to fight you. We do not want to fight anyone. We are tired, Your Majesty. Tired of bleeding. Tired of burying our dead. Tired of teaching our children how to kill." He reached down and picked up the chest plate from the floor. He did not put it back on. Instead, he held it in his hands, looking at the dented, scarred metal. "This armor has kept me alive through 3 wars. I would very much like to never need it again." He looked at the Queen. "Give us peace, and we will be the greatest friends your empire has ever known. We will trade with you. We will share knowledge with you. We will stand beside you against any threat. And if I refuse?" Daniel's expression did not change. "Then we will survive whatever comes next. We always do." The Queen stared at him for a long, silent moment. Then she turned and walked back to her throne on unsteady legs. "Leave me," she said quietly. "All of you. I need to think." Daniel bowed, gathered his armor, and walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back. "Sleep well, Your Majesty." Then he was gone, and the Queen was left alone with the image of his broken body burned into her memory. She did not sleep at all that night. The morning sun rose over the palace, but Queen Salara had not moved from her private chamber. She sat on the floor beneath a window, watching the light creep across the polished stone, thinking about what she had seen. 300 years she had ruled the Volanthi Empire. She had watched civilizations rise and fall. She had met thousands of species from across the galaxy. She had believed, truly believed, that nothing could surprise her anymore. She had been wrong. The image would not leave her mind. The human standing there, stripped of his armor, his body covered in damage that should have killed him 100 times over. The calm look in his eyes as he explained each wound. The way he spoke about suffering as if it was simply part of existence, as natural as breathing. And the worst part, the part that kept her awake through the long night hours, was what he had said at the end, that we were tired. Not a threat, not a boast, just a simple statement of exhaustion from a species that had been fighting since before they learned to walk upright. A species that had clawed its way to the stars through blood and fire and endless war, not because they wanted to, but because it was the only way to survive. And now they were asking for peace. Salara stood and walked to her window. The city spread out below her, beautiful and serene. Her people moved through the streets in their graceful way, wearing their fine clothes, living their comfortable lives. They had not known true hardship in generations. The Empire protected them from everything, but who would protect them from humanity? Not through war. The Queen understood that now. If the Volanthi fought the humans would not stop. They would keep coming, bleeding, dying, and fighting until one side or the other was completely destroyed. And based on everything she had seen and heard, the humans would be the ones still standing at the end. So the choice was simple. Peace or extinction. And yet, as she watched the sun rise higher, Salara realized that the choice was not really about survival at all. It was about something else. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Respect that the human had not begged. He had not threatened. He had simply shown her the truth and let her make her own decision. He had treated her as an equal, even when she had mocked him and dismissed him and laughed at his kind. He had endured her contempt with patience and answered her demands with honesty. That took a different kind of strength, the kind that could not be measured in scars. A knock came at her door. "Your Majesty?" "The court is assembled. They await your decision regarding the human delegation." Salara took a deep breath. "I will be there shortly." She dressed in her finest robes, placed the crown of living flowers on her head, and walked through the palace corridors toward the great throne room. Her steps were slower than usual. She was still thinking, still processing, still trying to find the right words. The court was packed. Every noble, commander, and official in the capital had come to hear her decision. They expected her to send the human away. They expected her to dismiss his species as insignificant and move on to more important matters. They were going to be disappointed. Daniel Carter stood near the entrance, fully armored again, his helmet sealed. He looked like a statue made of metal, patient and immovable. When the Queen entered, he bowed along with everyone else, but his visor stayed fixed on her as she took her throne. "I have made my decision," Selara announced. Her voice filled the chamber, silencing the whispers. "Regarding humanity and their request for peaceful relations with the Volanthi Empire." The court held its breath. "I have decided to grant their request." She let the words sink in. Watch the shock spread across dozens of faces. "Furthermore, I am proposing not just peace, but a formal alliance. Humanity will be welcomed as partners and equals in our domain." The room erupted. Nobles shouted in protest. Commanders demanded explanations. Officials waved their arms and called for reconsideration. The chaos lasted for several minutes before the Queen raised her hand and the guards called for silence. "I understand your confusion," Selara said when the noise finally died. "Yesterday, I shared your views. I believed humans were weak, primitive, beneath our notice. I was wrong. Your Majesty," one of the commanders spoke up. "With respect, what could possibly have changed your mind? We have reviewed their military capabilities. They are inferior to ours in every measurable way." "That is true." The Queen nodded. "Their technology is less advanced. Their numbers are smaller. Their experience in galactic warfare is limited." She paused. "But you are measuring the wrong things." She looked at Daniel. "Ambassador Carter, if you would be so kind." Daniel walked forward until he stood in the center of the chamber, visible to everyone. Then, slowly he removed his gauntlets and held up his hands. The court stared at the scarred, battered flesh. "Those hands," Selara said, "belong to a human diplomat. A man of peace. A man who came here asking for friendship, not conflict." She let the silence stretch. "I have seen the rest of his body. Every human soldier, every worker, every civilian carries marks like these. They consider them normal. They consider survival normal. They have been fighting and dying and surviving since before our empire was born, and they show no signs of stopping." The commander who had spoken earlier sat down heavily. He looked ill. "Underestimating humanity would be the greatest mistake our empire has ever made," the Queen continued. "I choose not to make that mistake. I choose alliance. I choose friendship. And I strongly suggest that all of you do the same." No one argued. Later, after the assembly had ended and the documents had been signed, Selara asked Daniel to stay behind. They stood together in the empty throne room. The Queen and the armored human, two leaders from two very different worlds. "I could not sleep," she admitted. "After what you showed me, I am sorry for that." "No, do not apologize." She shook her head. "I needed to see it. I needed to understand." She paused. "My people have grown soft, Ambassador. Our lives are easy. Our challenges are small. We have forgotten what struggle truly means." "That is not a bad thing," Daniel said quietly. "Comfort is not weakness. Peace is not failure. You have built a civilization where your people can live without suffering. That is an achievement worth celebrating. But we would not survive what you have survived. You might surprise yourself." Daniel reached up and removed his helmet, revealing his scarred face once more. "Strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build, one difficulty at a time. Your people have that potential. They simply have not needed it yet." The Queen studied his face, this strange, damaged, ordinary face. Then she extended her hand toward him. Daniel looked at the offered hand. A human gesture. How did you know? I did some research of my own last night. A small smile crossed Selara's lips. I understand it represents trust and equality. Daniel took her hand in his. Her smooth silver fingers wrapped around his rough, scarred ones. They held the grip for a moment. Two species connected by something more than treaties and documents. Will you truly choose peace? She asked. Even with all your capability for war? Daniel nodded. We have bled enough, Your Majesty. Now we build. He released her hand, bowed one final time, and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused and looked back. Thank you for seeing us, he said. Not as we appear, but as we are. Then he was gone. That evening, Daniel boarded his ship and began the long journey home. Once the vessel was safely in hyperspace, he removed his armor piece by piece and set it aside. He stood in front of a small mirror, looking at the map of scars that covered his body. Each one told a story. Each one had a cost. Friends lost. Family buried. Years spent in pain and fear and desperate hope. But it was over now. The treaty was signed. The alliance was formed. Humanity had a new friend among the stars. And they had earned it without firing a single shot. Daniel traced the hole in his chest. The wound that should have killed him, and smiled. Rest now, he whispered to himself. We made it. He turned off the light and walked toward his cabin. Leaving the armor behind, outside the viewport, the stars burned bright and eternal. And for the first time in a very long time, they looked welcoming.